Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for the main event of the evening, the roasting of Conor McGregor, the Notorious One, the king of delusions, the lord of losses, the emperor of excuses, the sultan of surrender, and the prince of pathetic performances. We're about to take him down a peg, or 5, or 10, or maybe even 20. This Irish warrior has been talking trash for years, but tonight we're going to show him what a real verbal beatdown looks like. Conor McGregor, the man who's been knocked out more times than a pinata at a birthday party, more times than a punching bag at a boxing gym, more times than a well, you get the idea. The man who's been submitted more times than a college student's homework, more times than a sleepy cat's nap time, more times than a. Okay, you get it. The man who's been making excuses for his losses for so long is starting to sound like a broken record, a scratched CD, a stuck cassette tape. You know what we mean. But enough about that. Let's get to the roasting. We have got a lot of material to cover and we're just getting started. We'll be roasting his fashion sense, his fighting skills, his ego, his excuses, and everything in between. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. And Connor, if you're watching, don't worry, we'll try to go easy on you, but no promises. We'll be pulling out all the stops, all the jokes, and all the burns to make this the most epic roast. So without further ado, let's get this roast started. Let's make some fun of Conor McGregor and show him what it means to be truly notorious for being roasted. Conor McGregor's fashion sense is like his fighting skills. Unpredictable, unreliable, and utterly ridiculous. He's worn everything from velvet suits to pimp costumes because why not? He's Conor McGregor, the king of questionable fashion choices. And who could forget the time he wore a beach dress indoors? I mean, what's next? Wearing a bikini to a boxing match? Oh, wait, he's already done that, sort of. And let's not forget his recent movie appearance where he was fully naked because, that's exactly what the world needed, more of Conor McGregor's bare behind. But in all seriousness, Conor's fashion sense is a reflection of his ego. He thinks he is a superstar, a fashion icon, a trendsetter, but really he's just a dude who wears velvet suits, pimp costumes, and beach dresses indoors. So Conor, here's a piece of advice. Stick to what you're good at, getting knocked out, and leave the fashion to the professionals. Or better yet, just stick to wearing clothes that covers your entire body. We don't need to see any more of your assets. Conor McGregor's fighting skills are like his fashion sense, unpredictable, unreliable, and utterly ridiculous. He's been knocked out, submitted, and embarrassed in the octagon more times than we can count. And who could forget his epic loss to Khabib Nurmagomedov? I mean, it was like watching a cat play with a ball of yarn. Khabib was just toying with him, and Conor was just, well, getting toyed with. And let's not forget his loss to Dustin Poirier. I mean, Conor was so confident, so arrogant, so wrong, he got knocked out cold, and we all got to enjoy the sweet, sweet taste of Shander feud. But in all seriousness, Conor's fighting skills are a reflection of his ego. He thinks he is invincible, unstoppable, unbeatable, but really he's just a dude who gets knocked out a lot. So Conor, here's a piece of advice. Stick to what you are good at, getting knocked out, and leave the fighting to the professionals. Or better yet, just stick to fighting people who are actually worse than you. That way you might actually win. Conor McGregor's ego is like his mouth, big, loud, and always running. He is always talking trash, always boasting about his skills, always claiming he's the best. But is he really? I mean, let's look at the facts. He lost multiple times in the UFC, he's been knocked out cold, and he's even been submitted by Khabib. But despite all that, he still thinks he's the king of the octagon. And don't even get me started on his tweets. Oh boy, his tweets are like a never-ending fountain of ego and arrogance. He always tweeting about how great he is, how much money he is making, how many people are jealous of him. But you know what they say? Pride comes before a fall. And Conor, you're due for a big fall, because when you're as arrogant and egotistical as you are, it's only a matter of time before you get knocked back down to earth. So Conor, here's a piece of advice. Try being humble for once. Try being gracious in defeat. Try being kind to others, because right now you're just coming across as a big, loud, obnoxious ego tripper. Conor McGregor's business skills are like his fighting skills, unpredictable, unreliable, and utterly ridiculous. He's invested in everything from whiskey to clothing lines, but let's be real. Most of these ventures are just a way for him to stroke his ego. I mean, who thought it was a good idea to launch a whiskey brand? Hey, I'm Conor McGregor and I'm going to make whiskey. Yeah, because that's exactly what the world needs, more whiskey. And don't even get me started on his clothing line. It's like he raided a thrift store and said, yeah, this is high fashion. Newsflash, Connor. Just because you're a famous fighter doesn't mean you're a fashion icon. But you know what the funniest part is? He actually thinks he's successful businessman. He's always tweeting about his business empire and how he's killing the game. But really, he's just a dude with a bunch of failed businesses, ventures, and a bad fashion sense. So Connor, here's a piece of advice. Stick to what you are good at, getting knocked out, and leave the business to the professionals. Or better yet, just stick to making whiskey for yourself, because let's be real, nobody else wants to drink it. Conor McGregor's rivalry with the Paul brother is like his ego, big, loud, and utterly ridiculous. He's been trading insults with Jake and Logan for years, but let's be real, it's all just a big publicity stunt. I mean, who tries to start a fight with a couple of YouTubers? Conor McGregor, that's who. He's like a cranky old man yelling at kids to get off his lawn. And don't even get me started on his tweets about the Paul brothers. He's always calling them out, always challenging them to a fight, but really he's just scared that they might actually take him down a peg. But you know what? The funniest part is the Paul brothers are actually better at trash talk than Conor is. I mean, they're like the dynamic duo of roasting, and Conor's just the old guy who can't keep up. So Conor, here's a piece of advice. Try being original for once. Try coming up with some new insults instead of just recycling the same old trash talk. And try to keep up with the Paul brothers, because right now you're just getting left in the dust. Conor McGregor's acting career is like his fighting skills, questionable, unreliable, and utterly cringeworthy. He's tried his hand at acting, but let's be real, he's better off sticking to getting punched in the face. I mean, who caused Conor McGregor in the movie? Hey, let's take this guy whose only talent is getting knocked out and make him an actor. Yeah, because that's exactly what Hollywood needs. More wannabe actors with bad accent. And don't even get me started on his acting skill. He's got all the range of a wooden spoon. He can only play one role, the tough guy with a bad attitude. But hey, at least he is consistent, right? But you know what? The funniest part is, Conor actually think he's a good actor. He's always tweeting about his acting career and how he's killing it in Hollywood. But really, he's just delusional. So Conor, here's a piece of advice again. Stick to what you are good at, getting punched in the face, and leave the acting to professionals. Or better yet, just stick to making movies for the straight to DVD bin. That's where your acting skills belong. Conor McGregor's boxing career is like his ego, overhyped, overrated, and utterly disastrous. He thought he could take on the best boxers in the world, but really he's just a fish out of the water. I mean, who gets paid $30 million to get knocked out by Floyd Money Mayweather? Conor McGregor, that's who. He's like a reverse Robin Hood, stealing money from promoters and giving it to himself. And don't even get me started on his boxing skill. He's got all the technique of a drunken sailor. He swings wildly, misses wildly, and gets knocked out wildly. It's like watching a train wreck in a slow motion. But you know what? The funniest part is, Conor actually thought he was going to win. He was so confident, so arrogant, so wrong. He's like the boy who cried wolf, except instead of a wolf, it's a boxing match, and instead of crying, he's just getting knocked out. So Conor, here's a piece of advice. Stick to what you are good at, getting knocked out, and leave the boxing to the professional. Or better yet, just stick to making money off your name, because that's clearly all you are good for. Now, Conor McGregor's UFC career is like his personality, flashy and predictable and utterly entertaining. He's had some of the most epic wins and losses in UFC history, and we're not just talking about his fights. I mean, who else can say they have been submitted by Khabib, knocked out by Dustin Poirier, and still meant to talk trash like they are the king of the octagon? Conor McGregor, that's who! And don't even get me started on his antics outside of the octagon. He's thrown punches at old men, smashed windows, and even attacked a bus full of fighters. It's like he's trying to be the UFC's version of the Joker. But you know what? The funniest part is Conor actually thinks he's a role model. He's always tweeting about how he's an inspiration to his fans, but really he's just a bad influence. He's like the cool uncle who lets you drink beer and skip school, except instead of beer it's whiskey, and instead of skipping school it's getting into bar fights. So Conor, here's a piece of advice: stick to what you are good at, being a wild card, and leave the role modeling to the professionals. Or better yet, just stick to being yourself, because that's clearly all you are good for. Conor McGregor's legacy is like his ego: big, bold, and utterly debatable. He's had some of the most epic moments in UFC history, from knocking out Jose Aldo to submitting Eddie Alvarez. But despite all his accomplishments, Conor's legacy is still a topic of discussion. Is he one of the greatest fighters of all time, or is he just a flash in the pan? I mean, who else can say they have gone from being a relatively unknown fighter to becoming a global superstar in just a few years? Conor McGregor, that's who. But you know what the funniest part is? Conor actually thinks he's a legend. He always tweeting about how he's the Notorious One and how he's going to be remembered as one of the greatest fighters of all time. So Conor, here's a piece of advice. Instead of tweeting about your legacy, why don't you just let your actions speak for themselves? Because right now, your legacy is looking more like a joke than a legend. And that's a wrap, folks. Thanks for watching the roast of Conor McGregor. We hope you had as much fun watching it as we did making it. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more roasts and other funny content. And to Conor McGregor, we say thanks for being a good sport.